Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make a creamy Italian chicken pasta with some focaccia, and then we are going to bake up our cookies that we prepped earlier. So I'm going to get my sourdough focaccia out of the oven where it has been proofing and kind of a warm environment. We already got a couple little bubbles on here. And I stretched mine out a little bit thinner because I want kind of like a crunchy breadstick kind of flavor for tonight. And I'm going to take some olive oil and we're going to drizzle about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons over the top. There we go. And then we're going to do our little dimple-y thing with our fingers. So I'm going to just kind of spread this just a little bit. I want it everywhere. And now I'm just going to take my fingers and we are going to dimple our focaccia. There you go. And this is going to help it kind of crisp up and when it bakes. There we go. I'm going to wash my hands real quick because they're a little oily now. And now we're going to sprinkle some seasonings over it. We're going to sprinkle a little garlic salt. So I'm just going to sprinkle up high so that it kind of, not a huge amount goes over it, but a nice little dusting. And then we're going to sprinkle some Italian seasonings over. And this will probably be about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Get a nice little kind of covering over it so it gives a good flavor. And then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella cheese on top. So it's kind of got that like garlic cheesy bread flavor to it. And this will also kind of crisp up in the oven. Here we go. Perfect. And now we're going to pop this in our oven at 375 for about 30 minutes. And this will allow it to kind of cook up and get a nice crunch on it. And I'm going to start it on my top rack. And then when we bake our cookies, I'll move it down to the bottom one. So that way it gets a nice amount of heat. And then I'm going to set my timer so I don't forget. I'm going to do for 28 minutes just so I have it on there. Okay, now let's start prepping up our chicken for dinner tonight, and let's cook up our pasta. So I'm going to turn my temperature to high. We've got a nice strong, boil on here. And we're going to add in a whole package of just spaghetti noodles. I'm already going to apologize in advance for any Italians. I am going to break the noodles simply because I just want them to all go under the water right away. And I have little kids and you need to cut up the noodles. So we're just going to break them half so they can all go under right away. There we go. And then let me get my pasta spoon so I can give it a good stir. Because you want to stir it when you put it in there so that the natural starch on the pasta doesn't have them stick together or stick to the bottom of your pot. So I'm just going to give them a nice stir. There we go. And we're going to be using a little bit of this pasta water in our sauce today. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt in my thing, about a tablespoon. And that will help flavor up the noodles as well as the starchy water when we're going to do it. Okay, let's prep our chicken here for our dinner tonight. So I've got 3 really large chicken breasts. So I'm going to cut them each in half, like thin them out. There we go. So almost like a butterfly, but we're going all the way through. There we go. And we're going to cut through this one as well. And that way when we fry them up, we won't have such a thick piece of chicken that we're going to fry, well, I guess saute up, not necessarily fry. in there. And so it will cook a little bit more evenly and it will keep it nice and juicy. There. Okay. Give my hands a quick rinse. Okay, let's season up these guys. We're going to use a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And I'm going to get all my seasonings because I'm going to be using one hand to touch them. So I want to get them all prepped so I can use my clean hand for it. So I'm going to grab my garlic salt, my Italian seasonings and stuff over here. So we're going to give them all a nice little bit of Worcestershire sauce. This is going to help keep the acidity in it. It's going to help keep your chicken nice and moist. And it's going to give it a great flavor too. So we're going to do a nice drizzle. And I'm going to kind of rub it over it. There we go. And we're going to be seasoning both sides of the chicken. So we're going to use some oregano, some dried oregano. And I'm going to just shake it on here. And you're just doing a nice like sprinkling over it. Because you want to have a good amount to season the chicken all the way through. So we've got our oregano. Then we have our Italian seasoning. And we're going to shake it all over. And of course, garlic salt. And a nice little sprinkle over. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the exact same on the other side. And this is going to make sure that your chicken has just a lovely flavor all the way throughout. There we go. So we're going to again, I'm going to drizzle it with a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And then we're going to sprinkle it with some oregano. There we go. And so it'll probably be around, 1.5 teaspoons of oregano if you were to add it all up. And the same thing with the Italian seasoning. And last but not least, the garlic salt. Now, garlic salt is not as salty as regular salt, so you can use a little bit more. If you're using regular salt, you don't want to shake it as much. Okay, so we've got our chicken here. Nice. I'm going to give my hands a little wash now since they were loving up on that chicken. Okay, and now we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in our big pan here because we're going to saute the chicken up and then we're going to move them onto a plate and then we're going to saute up our vegetables and herbs to make a sauce and then we'll have our chicken to be added back on at the end. So we're going to put a good about 2 tablespoons in here because I do have a pretty big pan and I don't want my chicken to stick to it. So I want to have a nice kind of coating on there. And we're going to let our pan come to a nice hot temperature before we put any chicken in because you don't want to put it in a cold pan. Let's give our noodles a quick stir. Here we go. I just don't want any to stick to the bottom. And while we're waiting on this, we can start to prep our onions for our creamy chicken Italian pasta that we're going to be having for dinner tonight. We'll have our focaccia baking in the oven, and we're going to roll out our cookies in just a second and get some tongs. Okay, so I have 1 big yellow onion. We are going to cut the ends off of each one. And then I'm going to just make a slice all the way through because we're just going to get rid of this first big layer.
You have a question. How many minutes do you need to cook each side of the chicken?
It's typically about, I want to say, when you get your pan hot enough, about 4 minutes on each side, 3 to 4 minutes. That's because we did cut them through and thin them out. Now, if you're doing a bigger chicken breast, you'll have to cook it longer. But that's why I really like to cut them in half so they can cook up a little bit faster. We are going to dice these onions up into a nice small dice. There go. Again, if your knife is sliding on your onion, it means it needs to be sharpened up. And a sharp knife, I always say, is safer than a dull knife, because a dull knife will slip and slide, and that's when you're going to get cut. There we go. So we're just doing a nice small dice. Okay, now let's see. Get my oil. I'm going to swirl it around. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of water in and see if it is nice and if it sizzles. There we go. So you see that sizzle once I threw it in there? We have a nice hot oil. And again, we don't need a whole lot of oil because we're just searing these off. But you do want to have a nice bit so they will cook up and not necessarily stick to the pan. I'm going to see, I might be able to get all of these in here at one time, but I might have to do them in batches. We'll just do them in batches because you don't want to necessarily crowd your pan when you're sauteing because the juices will come out and then you won't get that nice little brown little crispiness on it. So let me grab a plate for when those are ready. Okay, and while those are sauteing up, let's prep. I'm going to move this out of the way. Our cookies that we made our dough earlier. And so now we're just going to put them out. We're going to bake them in the oven with our focaccia. So let me get my big sheet here. So this is my 1.5 sheet pan. So it's bigger than a standard sheet. It actually fits the full width of my oven. I got it at Target, but I love it because it just gives you a bit more room. We're going to put a layer of parchment paper down. And you just cut this little one that's just... There we go. I will say, if you haven't made the switch to parchment paper for baking, do it. You will love it. I'm going to grab my cookie dough out of the fridge because I like to keep it cold up until we're ready to do it. That's the trick for having like the perfect, chewy, delicious cookies is to chill your dough. So we've got our chocolate chip dough, and you can see it's nice and firm. And we've got our white chocolate chip macadamia nuts. So we got 2 lovely cookie doughs. And let's turn my chicken down a little bit over here to about a 6. And then what I like to do is I just take a spoon and I grab kind of a good size, and I like to give it a good roll like this because it makes for a much prettier cookie. And with the dough being chilled, you kind of need to use your hands to roll it out versus if you were baking them from like freshly made. But chilling your dough is where it's at. It gives you the best cookie every time. Here we go. And you also don't want to overcrowd your baking sheet when you are laying them out. I like to just do rows of 4 so that they have plenty of space because you don't want your chicken or your cookies to melt together. Let's get our chicken here. There we go. We've got this nice kind of golden browning edging on it. Perfect. Beautiful. And we're going to saute up now, and we're going to work on our next row. And the nice thing about with your cookies, with chilling them, is you don't have to bake the whole batch up at the time. You know, a lot of times I'll keep them and then I'll bake them up another day later. So you have freshly baked cookies every day for like 1 to 2 days. And none of them go bad in your counter. And this is a easy way to make 2 flavored cookies from like the same base dough. So during our lunch stream, we made the base dough and then I added chocolate chips to one and then white chocolate chips and macadamia nuts to the other for our 2 variations of our cookies. Now they are similar, so they're not completely different, but still delicious. Let's give our noodles a quick stir. They're going to be done in about a minute or two. I can just tell by the feel of them when I'm stirring. They're still got a little bit of firmness to it, but not too much. Okay. A little bit more. We're going to do 2 more of the chocolate chip because we're going to do 5 rows here. There we go. And now we're going to do our white chocolate chip macadamia nut. And they'll cook up at the exact same time, which is also nice. So you can do both batches on one tray. And we're going to scoop these in. And these are for these. Right now I'm rolling the white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. And we just rolled out some of our chocolate chip ones. And these are going to be our dessert tonight for our creamy Italian chicken with pasta. And we have a sourdough focaccia baking in the oven right now. Okay. Scoop this in here. Very nice. You always want to make sure you push any of those little chips that like to fall out. I like to add a lot of nuts to my white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. I always hate when you get one and it has just one nut per cookie. And I'm like, what is this? There we go. And I'm going to check on looks like our pasta over here. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And let's check our chicken. See how it's cooking. Beautiful. We're almost getting there. Just going to move it. Kind of swirl this oil. You want to make sure we cook it all the way through because we'll be saving it towards the end to add on to our pasta.
You have a question? Where's your apron from?
Headley and Bennett. I did one of their mystery boxes because it was like a good sale. And I did the 3-1 because it was like the best price. And I got 3 different Star Wars ones. I got this is the Darth Vader. And I got an Ahsoka. And I got a Luke Skywalker one. But they're very like, unless you know the Star Wars, they don't just scream it out at you. But I will say I do like the quality. I've washed it a couple of times now, and it does like stay nice. The only thing that I have, which is not against the apron at all, is I realized I wouldn't get a dark color next time because it shows every little piece of flour on it. And I don't wash my aprons every single time I wear them. I try to get a couple uses out of them.
And you bake a lot.
And I do bake a lot, especially with sourdough. Okay, we've got our cookies all rolled out here. We're going to go pop these in the oven. These are going to cook for 9 minutes at 375. So the nice thing is these will cook at the same temperature as our focaccia. And what I'm going to do is we have our focaccia in here, but I'm going to move it down. Look at that. You can see it's so delicious looking. I'm going to move it down a level because I like my cookies, my baked goods to be on top. And then what I'm going to do, since I still have 12 minutes on here, I'm going to just cancel off that timer and I'm going to set my new timer for 9 minutes because I don't want my cookies to get burnt, and I'll know I have about 4 minutes after for my focaccia. So we have those cooking. Let's get these chicken out. I'm going to wash my hands real quick because I got some cookie dough on it. There we go. Okay, our chicken should be nice and ready. Beautiful. Look at this nice golden crust on there. And this is with our herb crusted. And now I'm going to put my next batch in. I'm trying to coat it in a little bit of that olive oil. And there we go. We're going to have these cook up. Now, the second batch of chicken will cook a little bit faster than the first batch because my pan and oil is a lot hotter. We're going to move this because we're done with that. And then let me check our noodles here and see if they're done for things. Because you don't want to overcook your noodles. You want a good al dente. These are perfect. They've got just a little bit of bite to them. But what my trick is when you bite into a noodle and if you don't see any white in the middle, it's cooked all the way through. So we're going to reserve a little bit of this liquid for our pasta. So let me get a container to ladle it into. So we want some of this starchy water. This is going to help thicken up our pasta naturally instead of using some other ones. And then we'll drain our noodles because you don't want to leave your noodles in your water or they'll get soggy. And I only need 2 cups max. I won't need too much. So let me just do one more scoop so I'm right at 2 cups. Because we're going to also be using cream in our things and then just the natural juices from some tomatoes. Okay, we got this off.
So you have a question, have you ever made your own noodles?
I do, yes. I have made my own noodles several times. That is a labor of love, I'll tell you. I absolutely love homemade pasta, but it takes, a hot minute. My kids absolutely love my homemade ravioli with homemade noodles. So I do make it, but it does take a hot minute. And I do believe I have a couple videos where I've made some homemade noodles for those. I have a good recipe for a sourdough discard pasta, which tastes just like a regular pasta, but it's a great way to use up some discard. And then I have it's a really elasticy dough, so it's really great for that. Okay, we've got our starchy broth here. Let's get our chicken. Our chicken's almost cooked up, and then I'm going to cut up my peppers here. So I've just got 4 sweet peppers, and we're going to do a nice little dice on these as well for our pasta. We're going to saute up onions, peppers, tomatoes, spinach, fresh basil, a little bit of garlic. Just give you kind of like a nice thing, and then we're going to have it's going to be a creamy sauce, but it's not going to be a super heavy creamy sauce. So we're going to have our pasta water and some cream, as well as the natural juices from our cherry tomatoes for just like a really delicious sauce. Here we go. I'm going to cut and just dice these up nice and small.
You have a question? How can you tell the chicken is done without checking the temperature constantly when you do it on the stove?
When you do it on the stove, I can tell by the feel of it when I'm punching it with my tongs. Once your chicken is firm and it doesn't flop, you know it's cooked all the way through because it gets nice and firm when it cooks up. And also, I have cooked chicken so long that the temperatures I just know from, it should be cooked by this if it's at this thickness. You could always get a thermometer out and check it, but I trust my feelings with it because I've done it so often. But when you go to pick it up, you'll know that it's nice and firm. And also the beauty of it is this chicken is going to sit for a few minutes while we make the sauce and everything. So it will continue to cook. It's kind of it's like a rest, but it's like a hot rest where it's cooking some more. A lot of people overcook their chicken because they're so afraid of it being raw. And it really doesn't take that much time to cook it when you're cooking it on high heat like this. And especially since we filleted it in half to make it much thinner.
Another question. What fruit are you having tonight?
We have some leftover watermelon, and then I'm going to cut up 2 grapefruits as well. I've got to go to the store, so we're getting on to our low end of our fruit because we've already eaten through 4 pounds of strawberries this week, a hammy melon, 2 pineapples, a pound of blueberries, a pound of raspberries, 10 bananas, and I said we have half of our watermelon left, and then of course we have just a bunch of grapefruits in our fridge out there. So we've gone through a lot of fruit this week.
How did everyone like the dragon fruit?
My 9-year-old, who is the one who insisted on it, loved it. She liked it, and my 3-year-old didn't mind it. My 13-year-old son, he says he wouldn't mind it in a drink, but it didn't have a lot of flavor. And my 15-year-old daughter was like, this is the worst thing ever. So they had all pretty good, they all tried it, and that's what I was happy about. Okay. Our chicken is just about cooked through here. So I'm going to just kind of put this to the side because we're going to start sauteing up our onions. And we want to do it in this pan with all that kind of herbs that are stuck at the bottom of it. Because when we add our liquid, we'll scrape those off and they'll add a really delicious flavor to it. But I'm going to start my onions right now here in the middle. And then we'll pull our chicken out because our chicken needs about a minute or two left. There we go. So we've got our onions here. I'm just going to give it a good kind of toss. And you can see as I toss them through, they're picking up some of that sauteed spices at the bottom. And that was just going to add a really lovely flavor to it. It's like when you're making gravy and you want the drippings at the bottom. This is the same thing. You want these little chicken and herby bits at the bottom because they're going to add some nice flavor to our whole dish. So I'm really trying to like scrape it off with my my spatula here, or my tongs. It's called deglazing the pan. There we go. Okay, we'll let those saute up for a minute. And now what I'm going to do with my tomatoes is I'm going to chop them all in half. That way the nice juices in the tomato can come out easily, and then you don't have to worry about your tomatoes popping or bursting in there. So again, I will say, if your knife does not cut through like quickly on your tomato, then you want to sharpen it up. Now, if you have a squishy tomato, there's really not much you can do. It's not going to cut well through that, but it should cut through great if you've got it nice and sharp. I sharpen my knives, I want to say maybe every other week because I do use them a lot. And I'm not necessarily the best knife keeper in the sense that half the time I throw it in my dishwasher when I don't want to go through the time to hand wash it, which is technically a no-no. But I've had these knives for 17 years and they work great. So, and I've put them in the dishwasher plenty of times. So it's not a recommended practice. But if you're like me and at the end of the day, you just want to get dishes done and you already got to hand wash a bunch of pots because with a big family, you have huge pots that everything needs to be hand washed. Okay, let's go get our cookies out of the oven. And let me see, I'm going to slide this away so we can put our cookies on there. And then our focaccia will have just a few more minutes left. Get both of my little oven mitts here. Beautiful. So here are our delicious macadamia nut and chocolate chip cookies.
You have a question? What kind of knives do you use and what kind of pots and pans?
Okay, so let me set this down. So I'm going to turn off this timer or it's going to beep at me. Okay, so my pots and pans, for my metal ones, I have All-Clad. I got them as a wedding gift. And for my knives, I use Wusthof, which I also got at a wedding gift like 17 years ago. So they're great and I love them. So here are our cookies that we baked up. These are our chocolate chip cookies, and these are our white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. You see how when you bake them from being cold and chilled in the fridge, they still are going to have that nice, soft, chewy center, but a nice golden outside for just the perfect deliciousness.
You have a question? Are you always cooking for at least 9 people?
Pretty much, because we cook for most of our meals. I mean, we do go out to eat, and if my parents are out of town, then we're not necessarily cooking for 9. We're still cooking for 7. But we also have my niece and nephew here a couple times a week. And so they'll be eating breakfast and lunch and snacks with me. So I am cooking for a lot of people all the time. But I love it. And it's not as crazy as like when I go at Thanksgiving. I do all the cooking at Thanksgiving for my family, and I'm the youngest of 10. And a lot of us have big families. Like my sister also has 5 kids like me, and then the rest all have 3. So there's a lot of people, and that's a lot of food to make. But I guess it's my my love language. Me cooking for food for people is me showing them that I care about them. It's something I love to do and I'm very passionate about. So it's not like work for me. It's something that I enjoy, especially the experimenting process of making like fun foods and whatnot. Now, to cook a meal to just get it out on the table to eat isn't as fun, but I rarely have to do that. Most of the time I get a plan, I get to pick out and figure out what I'm going to eat. Sometimes it's not, it's like 30 minutes before I start cooking. Oh, what should we have? But it doesn't ever seem like a chore, and so I really do enjoy it. And I have, and I said not everybody is like that. Not everybody loves cooking. I have like a sister of mine who absolutely hates cooking, so her husband does all the cooking, and it's really funny, but she'll do all the dishes and whatnot afterwards. And to me, I'm like, oh, that sounds awful. I'd rather cook than do dishes, but that's what she likes. Okay. We've got our onions and our pepper. We're going to throw in some garlic in here. And we want about a tablespoon of garlic.
You have a question? Do you meal plan for your groceries?
No, I am not that organized in the sense. I like the chaos when it comes to it. But what I do is I typically go to the grocery store. If anything is on sale or looks delicious, I will buy it up. Hey, teddy bear. Oh, you're gonna help me? And then I kind of decide. So I'll just get a bunch of different things that go with it. And then I'm just decide. Like, I had no idea what I was making for dinner tonight until a few minutes ago. But here we are making delicious chicken. Let's go get our focaccia out of the oven. And then you want to be my helper? But hey, buddy, we got to get something out of the oven first, and then you can be my helper, okay? So yeah, you can push it right up there. He has his little kitchen helper, and he loves to be my little helper here. But it's been a few minutes. Oh, perfect. That cheese really bubbled up nicely. So this is our sourdough focaccia that we prepped earlier today. Oh, beautiful. This is what we're going to have. We're going to have our focaccia, our bread. Yeah, yummy. Do you see the cookies? They're still hot, so we can't eat them yet. Can I slide you over here so you can be my helper over there? I gotcha. You ready? Chugga, 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 choo, choo. Beautiful. Okay. So here we just pulled our sourdough focaccia out of the oven. We prepped it earlier during our lunchtime stream. We covered it with some oil. We seasoned it with Italian seasoning and some mozzarella cheese. And it will be this yummy kind of garlicky, cheesy breadstick. Okay. We've got our onions, our peppers. Now we're going to put our tomatoes in. Do you want to help me put some tomatoes in? You just throw them in there for Mama? Good job. Yeah, you can put a whole handful in there. Yeah, you going to help me, Chef Teddy?
I guess your hair looks dark. They're asking, where does the blonde hair come from?
When I was younger, I had much blonder hair, but as I have gotten older, it has gotten darker with time. I never believed that my mom, because she has dark hair now, but when she was like in her 20s, it started to turn brownish black, and mine is definitely brown now, not as black as her, but in the summer it gets a little lighter. But everybody on both sides of my husband and ours are blonde, so everybody has blonde or strawberry blonde hair. Yeah, you've got blonde hair. He is my only one with blue eyes, though. So he's a blonde hair, blue-eyed beauty. Yeah. You got blue eyes? Yes, you have blue eyes. I have hazel eyes. That's right. Yes. You don't have green eyes. You have blue eyes. Okay, you want green eyes? Okay. But no, he's my lightest blonde. But my brother, my one who's 18 months older than me, has bleach blonde hair like this as well. Okay, we're getting in here. I'm making sure I'm trying to deglaze all of those good seasonings off of the bottom of our pan. Now, let me walk around here, buddy. We're going to get some spinach and some fresh basil. I'm going to scooch you just a little bit. Chugga, 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 choo. There we go. We're almost done with dinner tonight. We're getting close. So we have lots of fresh basil here, which is going to add a really nice bright and freshness to our sauce. So we're going to just pick it off. We don't want any stems. Do you think you can pick the leaves off of this for Mama? Thank you, buddy. Good job. And you put the leaves right there?
You have a question on your recipes listed?
Sorry, I had a little cough there. So we will upload our video after the stream on the link on our page, and you should be able to reference it there. I do try to get recipe cards out every now and then, but my life is kind of busy and crazy with kids and sports schedules. So the best way to get, if you want to remake a recipe, is probably just to find the video of the stream, and that way you could just cook along with it. And that's on the link on our page. Okay, we get a couple more pieces here. Do you think you can pick the leaves off of this one for Mama?
What?
Yeah, pick them off.
That's lot.
That is a lot. And while you pick those off, I'm going to mince up our fresh basil here. Now, if you don't have fresh basil, you can use dried basil. You'd probably want to use about 1.5 teaspoons, but it is really hard to replicate that fresh basil flavor. So I do recommend using fresh if you can. In the summer, it will be nice because our plants, thank you, buddy. Good job. You got some more leaves. Good job. We plant our garden, and I plant about 10 basil plants, about 6 of the regular basil and 4 purple basil. And it is just great to have so many that you can harvest from and take. And they do really well up until we take our long vacation. We do this big camping trip every year. We go to different national parks. Everything dies during that time because it's so hot in Tennessee. Okay, we're going to put our fresh basil in. You want to put a handful in? Yeah, I'll scoot you over so you have a little bit more space now.
Wet.
Good job.
Wet.
It is wet. Okay, we're going to stir in our fresh basil here. It's too sticky. Do you need a napkin?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get you a napkin. Here you go. Thank you for helping me. Okay, and now we've got our fresh basil in. We're going to toss in some spinach.
Do you have a question? What are the ages of the children?
So my youngest is 18 months, and then this guy will be 4 in about 2 weeks. And yeah, you're going to be 4 soon.
Yeah.
Then we have a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old. So we kind of have a lump of 3 older ones, and then this guy surprised us at COVID, and then we just had to add another sibling. Okay, we've got our spinach in here, nice. Now we've got our starchy water from our pasta, and we're going to add this in here. There we go, about 2 cups. Beautiful. And then we're going to give a nice generous sprinkling of garlic salt to kind of season it up. Yeah, you want about 1.5 teaspoons. I'm going to cook this. Beautiful. Yeah, it's not quite soup. This is going to be a sauce for our noodles. We're going to put our pasta in here in just a second. But it does kind of look like soup. You're right. Yeah. There we go. And then let me reach over here and grab my spoon.
What part of Tennessee?
We just live just south of Nashville. So we're in the Williamson County area. So we have the amenities of Nashville pretty close by, which can be both a blessing and a burden when you have to deal with the Nashville traffic. Okay, and now I'm going to put in some heavy cream. We're going to put in about 1/2 cup. There we go. And this is going to give us a nice kind of creamy, rich sauce. So beautiful. Look at that nice color onto it. Does that look yummy?
Yeah.
It does. And you good? Just be careful. Look at this. What are these?
Yeah.
Noodles. Now we're going to toss our noodles into our pasta sauce. And then I'm going to use my tongs. That's right. To twist it in. And I always like to do it straight in the pot while it's still cooking. This helps the noodles really pick up their delicious flavor.
You're good.
Does it smell good? Are you excited for dinner tonight? I know you love noodles, don't you?
Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Cookie. Love cookie.
And you love cookies. I see you eyeing those cookies over there. Those will be for dessert. Okay, we've got this. And now the last thing we need to do for our pasta is we're going to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese in here right now, and we'll twist it up.
Yeah.
You want to help me sprinkle it? Okay.
You got a question. Is that a collapsible noodle strainer?
It is. I have a couple of them. That one's the really big one. Perfect. You want to put it in? Yep. Good job. So that one's my big one, which can do big, like when I do things. And then I have a smaller one, which is great for like smaller batches of noodles or pasta. Thank you.
Yeah, I love noodles.
You love noodles.
Yeah.
Okay. Guess what, everyone? Dinner is ready. Do you want to hop on down? That way, because I can serve it up. You my big helper?
Yeah.
Yes, my big helper. Okay. Let's get dinner served up. So we're going to grab our noodles here. We have our delicious noodles. And then I'm going to grab a nice chicken breast that we sauteed up. And then they're maybe, here you go. You can sneak one early. The pan has cooled down. And now I'm going to get my focaccia. You can see we've got a nice sourdough focaccia. And I'm going to just cut us up. There, you guys can see the beautiful kind of bubbles in there for our bread. It's a little hot, so I'm going to cut these up. And we are going to have our delicious focaccia on the side.
You have a question. What time is it here?
It is about 8:45 here. So this is about normal time we eat each day because we have sports and everything. But again, we made our delicious pasta in a creamy sauce using fresh basil, tomatoes, onions, a little pasta water, and Parmesan. And then we sauteed up our chicken with some Italian herbs. And then, of course, we made our sourdough focaccia with cheese on the top. And let's not forget our favorite things, our cookies. We made our chocolate chip cookies and our white chocolate macadamia nut cookies, and they're just perfect, ooey gooey deliciousness. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're cooking for our family. Again, thank you for joining us. All of our videos will be uploaded on the link on our page. That way you can rewatch them and cook along again. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe.